Hello YouTube, De-bodgery here. Welcome to EV Components Review. Yep, kind of stuck to tear down videos, autopsy videos, things like that based on photos. Cameras are expensive, and I did have several $1,000s worth of cameras that are all stolen. And well, it takes time to buy stuff again, and I don't have the money for it. So I am stuck with my really basic point and shoot that I was fortunate enough to not have stolen. But all my good cameras are gone. Yeah, they have now become the property of a certain person in New Jersey who, yeah, who stole everything, robbed me blind, threw me out on the street, etc., etc. Anyway, yeah, so I can only do photographed-based video content for now until later on when I can buy some decent cameras again because, well, my little point and shoot, it does video really terribly. Its audio quality is quite bad. So, yeah, it's simply not compelling to even bother trying to make video with it. But it does okay for photos. So, anyway, a gentleman in the United States named Eric, he watched my YouTube videos, watches my YouTube videos, right? And, has seen that I've repaired other KO controllers, and so yeah, he contacted me on Facebook and wanted to ask me questions about his FSPEC and whether or not I thought it'd be repairable or not. So I told him, crack the case, let's look inside and let's see what we can see. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've seen KO MOTO controllers with fairly minor damage that can be fixed, and I've seen other ones where they're just nothing but ashes and destruction and thermonuclear war inside. And so there was no way to know without cracking the case for what was going to happen. And in this case here, I would say that this controller got caught at probably the most opportune time, because if he had continued to try to use it, it would have just simply destroyed itself. I'm pretty darn sure of that, because it was right on the edge. I think that it's probably going to be fully workable again, with just one repair and one set of parts, and that'll be it. Anyway, let's get inside this thing. Obviously, it's used. It's been sitting there, bolted down to his Suron or Tulare or whatever it is, and dirt off the front wheel gets on it. So, yeah, of course it gets dirty. No big deal. Yep, that's going to be expected. Put any controller in that spot, it's going to get dirty. All right, so first thing I want to point out is, as I go along, as is common for KO products, I point out Christopher Kleinschmidt's many, many deceptions and lies, because they are rife and common and pretty much everywhere. So, yeah, here's the first one. He loves to brag about the FSPEC and the Rush controllers having these so-called dry capacitors. And as you can see, they're not very dry. That's literally fluid that burst out of a capacitor and got on the plastic inside the back cover. So yeah, that's not dry. Christopher, those are called possibly, and I don't know this as fact because I've never looked at the data sheets for these capacitors. These are possibly low ESR electrolytic capacitors, but dry, no. And I've done a video on that one too. Yeah, just to dispel his typical BS nonsense. The guy is got the education of a rock, and the intelligence of a snail, and the character of a rattlesnake. He's completely corrupt, lies about everything. Deceptive. Yeah, if he wasn't Australian, I would say he was Chinese. Practicing the typical disreputable practices, which are so common to China. Well, his company does, so yeah, I guess that's par for the course, right? Okay, next picture. So here is the logic board for this FSPEC controller. You can see, some general, scorching and darkness and things up here. Stuff like this right here. This is basically smoke deposits on the board, around these capacitors, because I'll show you this. These caps are all torched. Yeah, they all have to be replaced. This controller was about to go thermonuclear. I've showed Rush controllers where this whole area underneath here was just burnt through, and this one's was getting pretty close to doing just that, and it didn't. It was turned off before that could happen. Yeah. So yeah, this got lucky, but yeah, all these caps right here they're all fried. These ones here are probably okay, but truth matter is, um, I'm going to replace all of them with like Nichicons, Rubicons, something good name brand, and replace 100% of them with brand new ones because, considering what I'm going to show you here and here in this section of these capacitors, there's a pretty good chance that all these caps have seen some pretty significant abuse and probably might work okay, maybe survived, but there's a good chance that they're all damaged. So better to just replace all of them. Otherwise, I'm repairing the thing, halfway, and I already dislike doing halfway jobs. Yeah, and KO is of course notorious for it. So I'm certainly not going to repeat their pattern. That's for sure. All right, so this power stage, or this logic board rather, has been repaired. This is a refurb, flat out. It is, and I'll show you all that stuff. But before I move into that, I just want to zoom right in here because I don't have a better picture of this. I didn't take one. But it's very common that this section right here, this is basically all your input protection. I believe that's a CAN bus transceiver chip. All this stuff fries. And that's a fairly common failure point in KO MOTO controllers. And as a result, all these little TVSs, this chip right here, they all get replaced. On my Pro controller, which I bought brand spanking new, and on my Rush controller, which I bought brand spanking new, yeah, I mean, both of them supposedly were all new. Yeah, this stuff had all been repaired, replaced, because, well, they blew. Because it wasn't a brand new controller. It was, in fact, a refurbished controller. Also, you can see up here in this section. So now you're looking at the driver electronics for the 2 of the 3 phases. I'll show you another picture of this that's less fuzzy, but there's flux all in amongst all these parts right here. So these TBSs, these gate chips, this connector, all this stuff has been replaced because, well, this is a refurb. Straight up it is. And all this stuff blew up and died, and they had to replace it. Anyway, I'll show you that in another picture so you can see that more clearly. But I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is the CPU. You can kind of see that it looks kind of like wet and covered with goobers. Yes, the CPU has flat out been replaced. And again, I'll show some of that in greater detail. This chip right here is a through-hole IC, but they surface mount it on here, and they bend the legs over and hand solder it in place. So the flux that's around here, that's probably from them hand soldering it, after the board has been completely, robotically component placed and everything robotically soldered in place and all that kind of thing. So probably that wasn't replaced. But yeah, there's plenty of other evidences here of repair. Again, up around this connector. In that one, you can definitely see the flux. That's definitely been reworked. This gate chip right here, I don't see any evidence of that. Same thing for this quad op amp package. I think both of those survived the original carnage that happened to this logic board, and were not replaced or repaired. So other than this connector, I think everything over here in this gate drive section probably survived, and just these 2 gate drive circuits over here fried when the power stage underneath them died the first time. Anyway, this is a refurbished logic board, flat out it is. And let us move on to the next picture. All right, so here's the capacitor carnage. I'm just going to say this. See, I told you so. Yeah, if you go back to my very first video where I showed anything about the FSPEC controller, I said this would happen. I think it was on an FSPEC controller. I showed the Kapton tape that they were putting under them, just little pieces and bits and bobs of it. And clearly they neglected to do so on this one. And so here is the battery plus pads all across here, totally unprotected. And these are bare aluminum, capacitor cans. And well, what do you expect? It arced between the 2. So yeah, literally blown holes through the sides of these capacitors. That's a molten, well, it's not molten now, but that's a little ball of aluminum right there. you can see all the arcing underneath the bottom of this capacitor and here and here. Yeah, these capacitors were literally directly arcing to the battery plus circuit traces that are underneath them. I said this would happen, and here it is. Yeah, I literally, people should listen to me. When I tell them something is going to blow up, I'm not making it up. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I said this would happen, and here it is. All right, let us move on. Okay, you can see all this as well, so more arcing in here. There's another little aluminum blob right there between those two caps. That might be another one right up there. Yeah, again, there's another aluminum blob, you know, where it was clearly arcing there. Some of this black stuff in here is arcing, and some of it is because these caps don't have vents. So you'll notice the top of them, they don't have like a little crosshatch pattern on them. It's like a weak spot that's deliberately made in the aluminum so that when the capacitor becomes pressurized, because the liquids inside start boiling, the top will crack open, and then those gases can release more gently. In the case of these caps, they're not vented, so instead they do this. So you can see right here, this cap was definitely, you know, struggling, got really warm, and instead what it does is it blew gases out from its underside. So there is a rubber seal in the bottom of the capacitor, and pressure built up in here sufficiently where it just went out the bottom of the cap. And that's what this is. You're seeing literally little jets of, boiling, slightly on fire gases coming out of this capacitor and exploding underneath. So probably a lot of this is also that same way. Some of it's also arcing. But these caps are all pretty well toast. They get pretty warm, a lot warm. I'm not going to reuse them. Okay, so I mentioned about rework in this area. So you can see the flux in here. You can see the flux around those TVS diodes. You can see it around the legs of those two gate driver chips. So yeah, basically everything right here got replaced. It was clearly blown up, and MOTO got the controller back under warranty, or they insisted on having it back warranty or not, and then they set down somebody with the thing and had them replace all these blown parts, manually soldered them most likely with a soldering iron, and then left all the flux all over everything, as is common for MOTO. I've never seen a KO controller yet that didn't have flux all over the thing. Unlike what Christopher Kleinschmidt says, no, all of our stuff is washed. We don't need to wash them. Everything's all perfect and clean, and that guy's just crazy. Yep, that's what it is. That must be what it is, Christopher. Couldn't be that you're lying through your teeth. Yeah, this is definitely a refurb. You can see all the repaired parts. You can see all the flux around the parts. They flat didn't wash the flux after they repaired it. They just left it all there because that's the MOTO way. Whereas, like, if you compare, like to this 7805 linear regulator, or this little buck chip right there, you can see that the legs don't have flux around them. That's because that was robotically placed. And after the board was assembled and built by the FAR driver factory that does this, they washed the boards. So yeah, that was original work, and not something that was done later on as a repair like all this stuff is. Yeah, that was done by a robot, placed the parts by a robot, solder placed on them by a robot, everything, machine soldered, and put through a reflow oven. Yeah. And then washed afterwards, and all this stuff was done by a person that repaired the board. Yep. Flat out. That's how that was done. All right, so let's move over to the next picture. Okay, it's kind of probably hard to see it, but this chip right here is hand soldered. It's a through-hole component that they bend the legs over and then surface mount it. So they have to hand solder it in place. It could be machine placed, but because it's a big 8-pin dip socket chip, probably the robots can't do it so easily, and so they hand solder after the fact. So anyway, flux around that guy is, they just didn't wash anything, but there's a pretty good chance that that was not replaced, not a repair, but, just simply soldered in by hand the first time around, and that was that. But up here, like at this connector, you can see it's got flux all around it. Clearly that connector had been repaired in some way. I don't know why. But like if you look at this gate chip right here, At least on this side of it, you can't see any flux on it. And when I look at it myself, I've got the board right here in front of me. I don't see flux on the other side of those legs either. And the same for that op amp package. So those are two. This is the gate driver chip, and this op amp package is basically monitoring phases. They both blow typically, and that stuff all survived for whatever reason on this controller, but these two gate chips and all the TVSs and things over here did not. So anyway, some repair over here, just some touch-up work, maybe some resolder work on this connector over here, but all that stuff survived. This CPU didn't, which I will show you here in a second. That has been replaced. There we go. So yeah, you can see all the flux all over the thing. Yeah, that CPU has flat out been replaced. Most likely what happened is the gate drivers died, when this controller was originally sold new and then blew up, and then came back in again. The gate drivers blew up, and the carnage that happened to them backtraced all the way into the CPU and probably fried that too. So in their typical KO MOTO, we don't give a shit that we're selling used stuff that we repaired as new. They swapped out the CPU as well, left all the flux around it, and there you go. Yeah, but yeah, that CPU is not original. Otherwise, if you look at the legs, you can see variations in soldering, because that was done by a human with a soldering iron and not by a machine. Whereas, like, if you look at like all these resistors and things over here, they all have very consistent soldering on their legs, and the same for this linear regulator and things. The amount of solder and stuff is all machine done, so it's very consistent. Whereas on this, yeah, it's lumpy. There's extra solder in some of them, and there's on other ones. Of course, there's all the flux all over everything that they didn't bother to clean up. Anyway, let's look at that CPU from a different view. So yeah, now you're just looking at it from the side. You can see that the legs are a little bit offset. If this was robotically placed, that would be perfect. You wouldn't see them a little bit offset like this. So again, that's a classic sign that a person put that on there. And then they hand solder with a soldering iron. They didn't even use hot air to do it. They just used a soldering iron. If I were to pull up a CPU and replace it, I would replace it with hot air, not with solder, on a soldering iron. You get much more consistent results. It's much cleaner results. Yeah, it looks, if you're any good at it, your results look like it was machine placed. And I can absolutely tell you, I can hand solder stuff with hot air reflow and make it look like a machine did it. So that it looks like the legs on this quad op amp package, where it's very consistent, or like the legs on that linear regulator where it looks all very consistent, like a machine did it. I can do work like that. I have done work like that. And yeah, this isn't it. This is hand done with a soldering iron. And they even left a little solder blob on the board right there. Yeah, good job, KO MOTO. Yeah, you completely give away the fact that you have gotten this board back, that it blew up in multiple places, bad gate drive circuitry, bad CPU. You replaced all that stuff and then sold this twice as new. At least twice. Hopefully just twice. Good God, they might be doing it more than that for all I know. But yeah, that's definitely repair. That's absolutely flat out repair. I don't care what they say, how they lie. That is repair. Straight up. This is a board that came back because of failures, and they had to fix it, and then they sold it a second time as if it was new. Not as a refurb. If they sold it as a refurbished product at a discount, I would not have anything to say other than clean up your shit. Clean up the flux, and they don't do that either. But no, they sell them as new, as absolutely new, and this is a completely disrespectful policy to their customers. Is disreputable, is dishonest. I'm sure there's several other disses I can say as well. But yeah, this is classic China practice. If you can get away with cheating somebody, get away with cheating it. And unless you're somebody like me who's going to take stuff apart and look, they can get away with it, because otherwise they have nobody showing them, you are being dishonest. You are being disreputable. You are literally being shady, shifty snakes in the grass, selling people used stuff as if it was new. So yeah, folks, I'm going to absolutely expose KO MOTO for their shitty practices, because this is not acceptable ever. Just the flux on here is not acceptable. And never mind the fact that it's a refurb sold as new. All right. Here's the bottom side of the logic board. Again, Christopher Kleinschmidt, lie, says everything is washed. Flux, 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 flux. Yeah, everywhere. Probably all of this darkening right here is because of the capacitors on the other side of the board, basically arcing and creating a lot of heat. I don't think that's because of MOSFETs burning underneath them causing that. I have shown you my rush controller where there were burns on the board, and that was from the logic, or the power stage rather, burning up underneath them. This is different. This is because of all that arcing from the capacitors, that darkening is. Anyway, you see all this gray on here. Again, that's probably smoke debris. I don't think it's anything else. I have looked at it a fair bit. I've literally got the controller board right here in my hands, and the picture makes it look white, but it's actually rather grayish looking. And it definitely has an electrical smell to it, like it's, capacitor smoke. So, yeah, I'm going to say that that's not dirt or something else on there, or, like, say, water deposits. That's very probably 100%, capacitor crap going on there. But, like, if you look at these caps over here, you see how this has just got flux on it, but they're clean. Well, those caps over there also didn't burn. So, yeah, I bet you this is probably partly burnt flux on here that's turned kind of grayish, smoky like that. Part smoke, whereas these over here didn't get hot, and so as a result, everything is just shiny, flux that didn't get cleaned up. Anyway, let's look at the next picture here. All right, as you can see, flux all over everything here. Clearly, this didn't get washed. Every single MOTO controller I've ever taken apart is exactly like this. Flux all over the thing. Yeah, clearly this was not washed. Flat out, it was not washed. Yeah, no, there's no evidence here of washing this board after FarDriver originally did all the SMD work on it and washed the board then. That's the only time these boards ever got washed. After that, nope, never ever. Yeah, MOTO simply just does not care. They're going to cut every corner they can. And yeah, so cleaning the flux off the board, well, that's more time. That's more expense. God, a little bit of, isopropyl alcohol or... denatured alcohol in a toothbrush. Oh God, that's just, that's going to cost us money. Huh. Yeah, and we cut every corner we can. So yeah, we're not going to wash our boards. Flat out, we're not. Not after we hand solder all of our caps. All right, so here is the power stage. I see no evidence here of any kind that would lead me to believe that this was a repaired power stage. All the MOSFETs are all placed like I would expect for mean machine placement. All of these caps are machine placed. All the studs are too. Yeah, this was built once and not repaired ever. So that's an original power stage. I don't see any evidence for any reason to believe otherwise. But nevertheless, KO, they claim they wash everything. Except for the flux all over the board. Yep, that's washed. Sure it is. I believe you, Chris, when you say stuff. Yeah, if your lips are moving, Christopher Kleinschmidt, you are lying. There's just no question about that. Okay, so I will show this again. You see this brownish stuff on here, and you can see a little bit up there, and a little bit up there. So, the outside of this controller is dirty. It's actually been used. This is dirt from the outside that didn't get through the seal, the silicone seal, until the owner of this controller cracked it open. And as a result, you're going to see little bits of that outside dirt like on the gasket. But then there's this other stuff, and I'll show you this some more. But there's this crap inside, and it's on these studs. It's in several other places too. Yes, I have no idea what this stuff is, but it's clearly not the same dirt that came from outside, because this is reddish brown and this stuff is blackish. It's not capacitor debris, I can tell you that much. That's going to make this like dusting smoke stuff, little tiny particulates and things, like you see in here. It's not going to make chunks like this. Never mind the fact that the capacitors are facing upwards and into the plastic shell, not downward into the heatsink. So yeah, this isn't capacitor carnage down here. This is something else. My opinion is that we already know that this controller has been refurbished. that it literally blew up and KO got it back and repaired it. And my suspicion is they didn't do anything to this power stage. They literally left it alone because it survived or whatever on this particular one. They just throw parts together and make working controllers, and I don't give a shit that they're used parts. And anyway, inside the thing was all this crap, and they just left it in there. Yeah, why clean it out? Why even bother to try to make your shoddy, seconds repaired shit look like it was new? Why even bother? Just put it together, ship it out like it's new, and don't tell anybody. Which is what they did. Flat out, that's what they did. Anyway, yeah, next picture. All right, so this one's overexposed on purpose, just so you can see, the capacitor smoke on parts. So you can see the difference between that and the crap over here. Yeah, and that way you can see that the dirt on the outside is brown. It's not this black and white shit inside here. This is a something else from some other thing. And it's not capacitor carnage like this is. This is smoke on the parts, and it leaves a patina on there. This will all wash off with IPA, isopropyl alcohol later on, and I will wash this all off. But yeah, as you can see, this power stage right here got used twice. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, and what that crap was inside there, you can see the dirt is a different color. It's not the same stuff. You can see the dirt up here is a different color than all that stuff. Not the same stuff. So yeah, flat out, this power stage got used more than once. All the little dings in here, Eric, the owner of this controller, I would not work on this controller until I saw inside it. I have seen far too many KO controllers that are just absolutely wreckage inside, thoroughly torched logic boards, thoroughly torched power stages, which makes them not repairable. It's basically some parts, it's autopsy, and that's about it. So yeah, if I'm going to repair something for somebody, I want to, well, a KO specifically, then yeah, I want to have some idea what I'm going to get myself into. Otherwise, yeah, you're wasting your time sending it to me for repair. If, the thing is just completely destroyed. And I've seen completely destroyed, power stages, logic boards. And yeah, well, this one, I've actually had Eric check all these MOSFETs to make sure that they're behaving as I would expect. And they are. So this power stage survived. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is completely functional, and I just need to replace burned up capacitors and put down an insulating layer between those battery plus pads and the caps so that we don't have that arcing, shorting, burning up issue again. But nevertheless, this is the typical shoddy practices of KO MOTO. It has clearly been used before. This is a power stage that's seen 2 owners now. Yeah, well, all the flux on it, yeah, clearly not washed. Okay, so yeah, you can see all the crap on things. I would expect some of this dusting to be capacitor carnage, but like in here, this is smack in the middle of the board. How capacitor crap would get there is an absolute mystery to me. I don't buy it. Maybe somewhere on the edges here, but I honestly think that the first owner of this controller, whatever happened there, this is all from them, and KO just simply never washed it out. They just simply slapped another logic board on the thing, sealed it up, and sent it back out again, like as if it were new. Yeah, again, you can see flux around things. Yeah, clearly not washed. Yeah, flux. Good job, KO MOTO, on literally selling a used power stage, not bothering to wash anything, just slap another logic board on top of it and selling it again. God, you guys are so awesome. You can see how these guys are wet. I don't know what that is. Maybe that is fluid from, liquid coming out of capacitors. So much for them being dry caps, if that's the case. I think really what this is the oils that are in the thermal grease. So you can see some of that oozing up here. It's probably, the liquid that's in this. It's an oil that got on those MOSFETs. That's probably really what that is. It's probably not from caps at all. All right. Again, flux. Yeah. Oh yeah. Those special engineered copper pieces with the thermal venting built into them. Christopher Kleinschmidt really said that about this copper, that this was a special engineered material. Uh-huh. Sure it was, Christopher. You bought it from which plumbing store exactly? In spools? Yeah, in 100-foot rolls or whatever. Yeah, there's nothing engineered about this. This is literally the exact same stuff that gets used as hangers for hanging pipes and ductwork and things like that. These little slots in here, that's so you can drive a sheetrock screw through them and screw them together, or screw them into something, or screw a screw into it. Yeah, that's not something specialty made for KO in any way. This is literally plumber's strap. Okay? If Christopher says anything else, he is lying. Flat out, he is lying. Yeah, he's good for that. All right. So you can see all this crap on here and on there. So yeah, I don't buy that. That's capacitor carnage. It's literally smack in the middle of the board on the bottom side, not on the top side where the capacitors are exploding. So I don't believe that that's capacitor debris. And the same thing with all this stuff. Yeah, you can see that, the dirt's right here. It's brown, and this is completely different. I don't know what this is, but yeah, that's not dirt incursion from outside. It would look like this, and this is completely different material, whatever that is. And you can see it's all up in here too. Yeah, this is a case of flat out. This is a case of KO had this power stage survive, whatever dipshit thing because of their shitty designs, and they just simply slapped another logic board on it and sold it new, as if it was new. And it's not. It's a refurb, flat out. This has been used more than once, and they just didn't even care. Just left all the crap in there. Didn't try to wash anything. Nothing. Just slap another logic board on it, close it up, and ship it and sell it to somebody else like it's brand new, and it's clearly not. You can see a few of these MOSFETs right here pretty decently, and there's no little lines next to them like they were manually shifted. None of this looks like it's been repaired. It's a a first run logic board that's been used a couple times, but it's survived without any repair done to it. It's kind of nice. You can see right here, these studs have more solder on them than I'm typically used to seeing on a KO. They're not quite as starved as they typically are, so that's not going to mean they won't twist off if you crank on the studs too much, because they will. But yeah, it's a little bit more solder flow on there than what I typically see, so I guess that's good. Yep, and here we are back at the beginning again. It's clearly pretty dirty. It's gotten used. You can see again the color of the dirt on here. It doesn't look anything like that black and white shit inside. So yeah, the stuff that was on the outside of this thing is not the same stuff that was inside. Flat out, it's not. Yeah, you can see that it's kind of reddish brown dirt on the outside, not that black and white stuff. Yeah, that controller power stage has seen 2 uses at least, sold twice new. Yeah, when it should have been sold once new and then sold as a refurb the second time. Anyway, folks, yeah, once again, another KO controller with tons of repairs on it, sold as new when it's a refurb. I can't stand KO. They're so dishonest, just corrupt, a bunch of liars, deceptive. Yeah, God, KO is the worst. Literally, I told you so that this would happen, and here it is. Yep, those caps look like they survived okay. These ones here definitely did not. But I'm yanking them all anyway. These are probably, struggling at best. They've probably suffered damage. Yeah. This is literally, see, I told you so. I told you this would happen. Well, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Folks, do not buy KO. They will sell you used and refurbished and repaired equipment as new every single time. I am pretty sure I have taken apart 10 KO controllers now. Physically in my position, in my hands, looked at by me. And at least 9 of the 10 have had this kind of crap in them. Controllers that were all sold as brand new controllers, all with significant evidence of repair work done on them. So what does that say for KO's failure rate? That it's ridiculously high. Yeah, obviously so. How else would they have so many logic boards with repairs on them? How? How is it that I would find power stages with so many repairs on them? Unless that's the case. You know, don't buy their products. You know, if you're looking for the functionality that KOMoto has, buy a FAR driver, okay? It's literally the same CPU, the same firmware, the same functionality in every way. The only thing that's different is a prettier case. That's it. So yeah, if you're absolutely hung on wherever it is, that, you know, having that pretty case, okay, buy a KOMoto and pay triple for the exact same thing you're going to get from a FAR driver. I mean, literally the same thing. Everything about KOMoto, the logic board, is made by FAR driver, flat out. Their firmware is FAR driver firmware. All the components on the board are the same ones that you'll find on a FAR driver, with a couple of small exceptions. Yeah, yeah. If it's not a FAR driver designed logic board, I don't know what that is. I'm just going to change my name to Santa Claus. Yeah. So yeah, unless you're looking for that, just buy a FAR driver instead and save yourself easily twice the money. Yeah, because you're going to get the same quality, or well, actually, you're going to get slightly better quality than you will of a KOMoto, because FAR driver doesn't suck quite so badly. Not that they're awesome, but they just suck slightly less. But yeah, you're going to get the same build quality. You're going to get the same components. You're going to get the same design work and all that stuff. Everything is the same, just a different box on the thing. Prettier aluminum. That's it. Well, anyway, I hope that helps out. KOMoto sucks. They really do. They're very deceptive. You just buy a FAR driver flat out. Yeah. Hope that helps you folks out. Yeah, avoid this company. They are just the worst. They are the tofu dregs of controller manufacturers. Truly, they are just absolutely the worst.